Greetings, Lewis, and welcome to another video. We've just had YCS Las Vegas happen this past weekend. We are currently on February 26th, which is the day right after the YCS. And there's a few things we need to talk about and cover because we're in a format that is very, very defining when it comes to like player knowledge and like how to advance yourself from other players and their strategies. But yeah, without further ado, let's begin. So, YCS Las Vegas had a lot of teams. Uh, we're pretty much on like week number 3 of Phantom Nightmare format, meaning that the Snake Eye Fire King deck, as well as a few other strategies, are very, very popular. And we can see it right here from the deck breakdown from day number 2. Uh, if you can see here, we have 248 duelists who made it to day 2. And if we look at the breakdown, out of those almost 250 players, half of the field was the Snake Eye Fireking deck, while 23% was the Snake Eye deck, meaning there was a total of 73% of like Snake Eye players. 74 if you count the Sinful Spoils Rescue Ace, because they were playing the Snake Eye portion, at least a small portion of it. I will get to that in the explanation. So this is very, very like strong to withhold, because it essentially means that every single strategy outside of these outside of the Snake Eye like hybrids are strategies that are either A, trying to contest against them, or B, are very, very strong themselves, but not to the point where the Snake Eye variants are. And we kind of already made that debate like when we were talking about regionals the weekend prior. However, now that we're in a more advanced gaming environment, in a most advanced settings, we can see that this reputation just held true to that regard. So seeing this, like, you're kind of wondering yourself, can all these decks be viable this format despite the fire format already happening? We see one Manadium, one Labyrinth, one Branded, one Purely, like 3% Flonderies, 3% Kashtira. These are two Dimension Shifter decks, so they were pretty much a mainstay of like having an edge this format. We have 4 Despia Branded, so it's technically 5 if you add it to the Branded pile. So Branded was the most popular deck prior to Phantom Nightmare. That is like doing very strong in the Phantom Nightmare format. And then we have Voiceless Voice, which is at 6%. Moving into top 16, we see marginal difference. Shoutouts to Lampy. Like he is always up to date when it comes to like going to events and YCSs, unless he is attending one himself. Very good player, very good YouTuber, very good content creator, very good influencer. Uh, we see here in this chart that out of 48 contending decks, 40 of them are pretty much a Snake Eye variant. 41 if you count Rescue Ace. That is a very, very big deal. We see here that Flonderies and Purely both got a spot. And then we have 5 Voiceless Voice, which shoutouts. I don't remember the name of that team, but shoutouts to the team that all played Voiceless Voice. There was one entire team that they all played the same deck, and it worked. It worked hard. It worked through. They made it all the way to top 8. So this essentially just tells you that how strong all these decks are in the format. Flonderies was a given, and Purely is a strange approach to making it to top cut. The thing about Purely is that it is a deck that can play a good amount of non-engine. It is a deck that is very very consistent at what it does, and expertly noir like with six materials is very very hard for a lot of decks to deal with, even all the Snake Eye variant decks. We see here the top winning teams like the team Jauhari won won their match. Two of them were playing Snake Eye Fire King, while one of them played pure Snake Eye. We have Team Supreme Pro. Shoutouts to Team Samurai X and shoutouts to Pakawat. They all played the pure Snake Eye variant, and not only that, they all played the exact list card by card. And I will talk about that when it comes to like the tech portion, because there is one card that they played that was very very significant. You have Team Fala Galera, which they all played fire decks as well. So it's pretty prevalent that fire is just very very dominant this format. Uh, there are one or two notable things I want to talk about before we talk about the techs. The first thing I want to talk about is Hani Jawari. Uh, you will see here on his deck list that you see Fire King High Avatar Kirin. However, he miswrote the text on that card while applying for the deck list and had to play the entire event without it in the main deck. And that is a very, very big deal because it meant that his Fire King engine was very subpar and just didn't hold true to enough game ones. One thing that he did that circumvented that, and I guess I'll talk about that right now, is that he played both Divine Temple and the second Flamberge in his side deck. Meaning that when he was siding out his strategy, he was leaning towards a more pure variant of Snake Eyes and was managed to like secure a couple of grind games that way. So now that we're here at this portion, I want to talk about tech cards that were very, very popular this weekend, and cards that you should really consider if you're playing this format, or cards that you need to adapt to when it comes to this format. The first thing I want to talk about is like Temple and Snake Eye Flamberge. Honey made the consension plan to just side these cards. However, as we are seeing more and more, Snake Eye as an engine is just very, very dominant. And if you can fit these cards in your deck, like in your strategy, even in the main deck, it would just going to flourish a lot of rewards. Because, like, until this engine gets addressed one way or another, we're looking at a very, very strong, like, oppressive force that just outright defeats any other strategy in the game at the moment. The other thing I want to talk about is like the popularity of floodgates, like summon limit and anti-spell fragrance specifically. Like, if these cards are not in your main or side, you should be playing a strategy that is cognizant of the existence of these cards. Uh, right now, I'm piloting the Centurion deck. And one of the things that like really is beneficial for me when it comes to that strategy is that it's a deck that can play around summon limit, like a fair amount. Not against anti-spell fragrance that much, but it really just depends. Um, and I guess I'll talk about the other tech cards that were played this weekend. Right now, besides like the ones present on the board, as you can see, Voiceless Voice. I'm showing you, casing you an example of Voiceless Voice in one of their boards. Like, Voiceless Voice is guaranteed the second best strategy outside of something with Snake Eyes. Like, the deck already proved itself. It is showed very, very, very resounding success, and like right now in my area, this deck is as popular as the fire deck because it's as affordable, and it can actually contest against like all the strategies in the game as long as you are like very prepared for it. That being said, this deck was very popular, and a lot of Fire King players respected this archetype. So that meant they made a contingency plan for their deck, and the first one was Bystials. If you haven't checked it out, I did make a video on this. I did talk about the importance of Bystials and how viable they are this format. I even made a sheet like showcasing you screenshots with how to interact against certain strategies with the Bystials in your main or side deck. So it seems like my hunch was correct. I thought about Bystials like being played as an engine like already beforehand, and that's what Team Supreme Pro did. Like Pac, Hansel, and Sam, they all played a good amount of Bystials in their side deck, and that pretty much gave them very beneficial results against like voiceless voice. This is also very strong because branded is another strategy that is as popular as voiceless during the weekend. So it was also a contingency plan against that strategy as well. It also hurts Labyrinth and it also hurts Manadium, which were also two popular decks that just were close to making it to top cut. So essentially, if you don't know, and I already spoke about that, you pretty much just try to use the Bystials to like counteract Saphira and Low, and you just debilitate the end board that the voiceless voice players make, and force them to like play more awkwardly into them. So another thing that was popular this weekend is more spell and trap removal, specifically Typhoon, because Typhoon can contest against anti-spell. And Typhoon was really strong because against the Snake-Eye deck, if they have Temple or they have any other field spell and they have something in the spell trap zone, you can Typhoon away one of their cards, like on the spot, even on turn 0, and just like debilitate a lot of their plays that way. Uh, Drawing it as a 6 card was also strong because it made it so it can contest against Flamberge's effect to spawn from the spell and trap zone. It can also contest with like the temple itself from spawning from the spell and trap zone. It also was good against like floodgates, as I mentioned beforehand. Against the voiceless deck, this is also very strong, as well as Twin Twisters, because if they have like the voiceless trap card, they can only use that during the main phase. And if they have the Silent Forcing Barrier, you just weakening like their protection on board, making it a lot more prevalent for you to contest their boards entirely. So this was a very strong pick this weekend. Players who did this, they pretty much got a good amount of advantage, enough for them to get into top cut. Now we look at triple tactic talents. I feel like we're not in a board breaker format. I feel like hand traps are just way more effective than board breakers at the moment. However, triple tactic talent is just very very strong. As your non-hand trap of choice because of how heavy the format is with hand traps as well as like other interactions outright. Just the utility of this card and just how powerful it is in the format just warrants this card's spot, whether it is in the main or the side deck. Speaking of side deck, we have Crossout Designator. Uh, Crossout Designator is way more important this format than it has been on any other format we've had in the past. In a format where we have a definitive best deck and we have definitive like side deck and main deck strategies, Crossout it just shines very well. One really cool thing about crossout is that it's not just used for the mirror match. It's not just used against like certain key cards, but it can also shut down floodgates. Like if you know that your opponent is on summon limit and in on the anti spell, you can essentially just chain the crossout, banish one of their copies of those floodgate cards, and just have them being turned off for the turn, meaning that you can safely play your strategy without worrying about said floodgate. Uh, Against stuff like talents with and against like other cards that are just blowouts, you can just cross out those cards as well. And it's just very very strong. It gives you a very huge advantage. Now I'm going to talk about a card very similar to this, and this is a card that was in the main deck of the entire team of Supreme Pro, which led them to the finals. And that card is Lullaby of Obedience. For those who don't know what this card is, essentially you pay 2,000 life points, declare a monster card. If your opponent looks has it, you either they each choose to either give it to you to your hand or summoning it onto the board. This card in the past has been used against hand traps. It has been used against like certain strategies, just to pick apart stuff that you can use in mirror matches. However, in this particular format, this card plays a very very big role. The number one role is interaction with Snake Eye Poplar. Essentially, what it means is that no matter what happens to Snake Eye Poplar, you're going to resolve its effect and you are going to special summon it because Snake Eye Poplar is activated when it's added to the hand. Uh, it doesn't matter how it was added to the hand as long as it was not being drawn. And also, if your opponent chooses to summon it, you essentially just getting a +1 out of it, regardless. Another thing that's strong about Lullaby of Obedience is that against the Voiceless Voice deck, uh, essentially what you can do with Lullaby is just call the Skull Guardian, and your opponent is forced to give you a copy of the Skull Guardian, meaning that they are only playing with one Skull Guardian left in their main deck, which also means that if you get rid of it or you just put them out of the rotation of the voiceless cards, you pretty much just end the duel right there, because you are holding hostage another copy of the Skull Guardian in your hand, meaning that they cannot play like with it by any means at all possible. So this card is very strong in that regard. It also serves as a purpose of just grabbing hand traps. If your opponent decides to like special summon the hand traps onto your board, like one example is Ash Blossom and Joy Spring. Ash Blossom is a fire monster, so if you are playing the Fire Snake Eye deck and your opponent is on Ash Blossom, and if they choose to not give you the Ash Blossom, but outright just summon it. That's just a free monster you can use for like Hita, just to give you an example, and giving you access to Hita with just one summon out of your deck, like out of your monster zone, is huge because you can make it. You can get to Promethean Princess with just committing one monster on the board while using this card. If you play synchros in your strategy, that you can take tuners out of your opponent and just like follow in that way. If you want to like take very specific targeted cards like Bystials, for example, they can just give them to you, or they can just summon it and they are just free bodies. If they give you Magnamut, you are plussing out of Magnamut, like no matter what. So this was a very very strong choice from Supreme Pro, and it's just like one of the main stairways of the weekend. Like this card was pretty much MVP for sure. So I guess I want to talk about one last thing before we end here. This was round 10 of the YCS. And this team did make it to top 16. So Chancellor played the Rescue Ace deck. However, they only played one Snake-Eye monster in the main deck, which was Snake-Eye Poplar. And that is a very, very big deal because in this specific feature match, they did the entire Promethean Princess Zelantis OTK combo without any Snake-Eye cards. And this is a very, very big deal because in the off chance the Snake-Eye engine is addressed, if they don't address like the Zelantis combo or interactions with Promethean Princess, we're pretty much looking at a strategy that is going to be dominant after the Snake-Eye format. So I feel like a ban list is going to come too soon to the TCG. It might not happen until April because April is the release of a Legacy of Destruction, which will be our next main booster set. However, if we are to like thrive away from this like fire dominant format, essentially they kind of have to address this deck in some way or shape or form. And I feel like Sea Dragon of Zelantis could be a main contender to be like in that chopping block. But yeah, that's it from me. I hope you found this video informative and to your liking and understanding. Keep practicing and keep dueling.